be Michael. I like
I
it.
do.
You can do it from behind me. I was like,
Oh, I'm sorry, right here, how are you?
yeah.
I just stepped out to you right now, but then afterwards, anything that might be used tonight, then I will give you a call. No, yes, yes, yes. Do you want me to give it to one of the principals to give to him when he comes in? Yeah. Okay.
All right, call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Your entire email address is. Yeah.
All right, thanks everyone for coming. All right, before we begin, let me just start by saying the comments and statements portion of our agenda is for the committee to take input from the public, obviously, and of course we want that input. But we need to remember to be civil. Let's make the comments as they relate to the items on the agenda. Let's not, mention people by names. And again, let's keep it civil. And I'll allow everyone 3 minutes at the mic. So if there are any comments and statements from the public. And please state your name.
Andrew Cottrell. I am the president of the Westport Federation of Teachers. I sent an email to the school committee, but I'd like to read it for you. The Westport Federation of Teachers wishes to express our opinion on the recent administrative changes. While we realize change is always hard, sometimes change can be a good thing. We fully expect that the recent administrative changes will be positive for our teachers and for our students. Through her tenure as assistant superintendent, Dr. Dargan demonstrated her ability to be a strong but fair leader. This was evident in her work of implementing the new teacher evaluation system. She also established a commitment to providing the necessary resources and tools by implementing new programs and technology. Dr. Dargan has been very proactive, with every new educational initiative. Her collaborative work with our teachers has established her desire to provide the best possible education for the children of Westport. The Westport Federation of Teachers looks forward to hearing more of Dr. Dargan's vision for the Westport Community Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Superintendent's report, Dr. Dargan.
Thank you. This is a new item on the agenda, and I'd like to make it a standing item on our agenda, because this agenda item will provide an opportunity for me to be able to share letters with you of recognition, commendation, and other good news regarding activities associated with the Westport Community Schools. So I asked a lot of our principals to give me some good news that I'm able to share with you tonight. First, I'd like to share from the technology department. As part of the town-wide phone system project, the schools will be starting. There is some elements that are already in place. And over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be sending out information on the school's new telephone numbers via email, one call, website, local cable channel, and letters to parents. So we expect that that'll be happening probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. Coming out of our sports world, from Jason Pacheco, our athletic director, he says the golf team finished 10th out of 13 teams at the Mayflower Athletic Conference Championship Tournament. Matt Murphy completed the MIAA South Sectionals as an individual entry for Westport High. Matt shot an 86 and finished 36th of 69 golfers, and we'd like to say great job to Matt. In the boys soccer, they have qualified for the South Sectionals. They have 2 games left this week to work towards improving their seeding. I know that there was a soccer game out back this afternoon in the rain, so perhaps we'll get an update on that score very soon. The girls volleyball did not qualify for the South Sectionals. They have 3 matches remaining this fall. The field hockey team also failed to qualify for the South Sectionals. They'll wrap up their season with Senior Day on Thursday versus Dartmouth. And our co-op football and girls soccer are having a good season that are led by the Westport student athletes. So we'd like to say good job and kudos to all of our student athletes. Coming out of the MAC, as part of their ongoing efforts to enhance children's social and emotional development, the Macomber School is excited to continue to offer a pet assistance education program to all kindergarten students. The objective of this program is to introduce children to well-trained dogs and their caretakers, Dr. Brenda and Greg Stone. And they'll provide opportunities for discussion about the needs of pets and how they communicate, how pets and children can be friends. The Media Center at the Macomber School will open next week. Volunteers from their business partner, Lee's Market, will be there on Monday to assist in taking books out of the Media Center. And also from the MAC, the WRWA, Westport River Watershed Alliance, and the students of Macomber School planted bulbs in the school's gardens as part of their fall science program. Coming out of the middle school placed 2nd place in the Some Dog Bristol County contest. Out of 412 participants, the following students ranked in the top 10. So in 5th place, we had Aaron Souza. In 7th place, we had Kimberly LaHoy. 8th place, Anastasia McMaster. And in 10th place, Gina Resendes. So kudos to the kids over at the middle school. And then coming out of the high school, we had 4 students participate in the 2013 26th Annual WPI Invitational Mathematics Meet. They were Elizabeth Broadbent, Richard Hartnett, Julia Valeri, and Emma Wilkinson. So kudos to the kids at the high school too as well. The last piece that I'd like to share with you this evening is that we have had a couple of resignations as well as retirements. We have Rebecca Lindsay, who has left our district, so we'll be looking for a new SPED clerk. We have Ann Clark, who is a special ed teacher over at the middle school, and she has announced that she'll be retiring in June of next year. And we also have Claudette Alberto, who is a support staff, and she will be retiring in November of 2014. So we wish all of them well too as well. And then we hired Shelby Allen, and she will become the executive assistant in the Department of Human Resources. So that's just a little bit of an update on what's going on here in the school department.
Okay, good. Any questions? Thanks, Ann. September enrollment update?
So in looking at the enrollment that you have in front of you, Michelle Raposa has put together for us. You can see an analysis compared to last year at this time, where we stand today. And then also keeping in mind, as you look at this enrollment, we also have 15 students in out-of-district placements.
15.
15, yes, out-of-district students.
Okay.
So at this point in time, we have a total enrollment of 1,624 students in-house and 15 students in out-of-district placements.
Okay. Questions? All right, next on the agenda, dress code.
I know that that has been an issue that the school committee has wanted to discuss for some time. In your packet are some of the policies and some of the procedures that are outlined in the student handbook. This is an opportunity for you to have your discussion, and also if you have any questions or comments or concerns, we do have the building administrators here who are willing to answer any questions or comments if you want.
I guess I will open up, because I've asked for this a couple of times. My purpose for asking was more along the lines to find out from the administrators how they're dealing with the dress code policies in their schools with staff and students alike. I do have children in a couple of the schools, and I do see attire that makes me sort of cringe a little bit here and there, and I wonder how it's addressed, and if it's addressed. Things like a midriff, which is in our policy, it's in our high school and middle school and elementary policy as well. I think while I don't know that I necessarily, and I'll even go back to, you sent us the article in the Villager that was published, I guess, last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I found two things interesting. One was the comment from the student that members of the school committee would like to see a dress code similar to that of the middle school implemented at the Westport High School. I find that interesting because we haven't even had this discussion. So that's not necessarily what the school committee wants. It's her opinion. But also, she comments that the high school doesn't have a dress code. And that concerns me, that the students don't feel like there's a dress code. There obviously is a dress code. It's in our handbook. So I'm curious how it's addressed from a teacher's perspective, meaning if a teacher comes in and is dressed inappropriately, what happens? If a student is dressed inappropriately, what happens? And what exactly are we considering inappropriate? Personally, I feel like we are educating our students, we are preparing them to be successful in the business world, as well as in college, beyond. And if we walk into a room with a halter top or our belly showing, that's not obviously proper attire. So I do see it, and I don't know how it gets addressed. So I guess that was my concern, is how are we addressing it?
Do you want?
I'd like them to run up to the mic as they wish. Nobody seems to be jumping, so.
Ms. Antonelli?
Oh, hi, I'm Karen Antonelli, the assistant principal at the high school. And I guess dress code comes under my responsibilities. I do feel that we do have a dress code, which is, the blanket statement is anything that we find distracting from our primary purpose, which is teaching and learning. I oftentimes do get a quick email from a teacher who'll say, do you think you could look at so-and-so? I find that, especially with high school kids, it's a very sensitive issue, because certainly it's a time when kids are very conscious of their physical look. It's also a time when we're trying to develop responsibility, personal responsibility in them in all aspects. Many times, if something is inappropriate, every time I should say, I very quietly will say, may I speak to you for a moment? And will point out that I feel that whatever they're wearing, it certainly is male and female, at certain times is inappropriate, and it's always, could you just find a sweater, or could you pull those pants up a little higher? And it's been very successful. I think that, again, when kids become high school students, they really need to understand that these are part of their education, is how to dress appropriately if you go to a job interview. You know, it does reflect, and there are certain times when some clothes are inappropriate, like beach attire is not school attire. So that's how we deal with it, on a case-by-case basis, and I would not say it's a daily activity at all.
Can you address the comment, and you were quoted quite a bit in that article, and I agree with actually everything that you had said in there. I do feel that they need to learn to make responsible choices. I think we need to help them learn how to make those responsible
agree.
choices. They don't always necessarily have the parent involvement at home that are helping them do that. They may or they may not, or they may also try to get away with it, walk out with something different in the morning, and they get on the bus or whatever and they change. And I'm sure that that happens. But at the same time, you know, I think that we need to make sure that they are dressed appropriately in school. I think underwear, pants down to the knees, straps, like the thin spaghetti straps, halters, midriffs showing, I don't think it's appropriate school attire, though some of them look very nice. And I also feel like I like the fact that kids can express themselves. And I know that was a big concern in that article. Well, we want to be able to express ourselves. And I get that. And I agree with that. I'm expressing myself slightly tonight, hence by my shirt. And I think that's encouraging. You know, I encourage that. But I know being in the school, I do see things. And I'm wondering, do the kids realize there's a dress code? Because she says right in here, we don't have a dress code. That was kind of a concern when I read that.
I do, and I also was surprised that there was, I think the Villager reporter did a wonderful job. I was very happy with the way she, quoted what I had to say. That was one student. It probably would have been better had we had several students' opinions, because, there were always kids who, I was talking to some kids recently about the dress code because of that article, and they said, oh, I think you're always telling us about that. And then someone else was quoted as saying there isn't one. I do think the students are very well aware of the fact that we have an expectation, and they are reminded of that expectation for the way they come to school. I think that to start making lists is very difficult because fashion changes, styles change, and we would have to be updating, and I'm hoping I'm not part of the fashion police, but I do want the kids to feel comfortable and certainly never will embarrass anyone.
No, and I appreciate that. And I did take a look at some of the other dress codes that are in the schools in the area, and they're actually probably a little tighter than ours is. In general, a lot of them don't even allow the leggings unless they have a long dress or something over it. And I'm not even that, personally, that strict. I just think if I come into a school, I shouldn't be able to see a girl's belly or even a guy's belly, or their shoulders or cleavage, and I see it from time to time. I was wondering how it's addressed, and how is it addressed with staff as well? Or is it not even an issue? Do you address that?
I've never had to address it. I have had to address it in other schools, but never at Westport High School. But I would say that as a group of administrators at our administrative meeting the other day, we were discussing this, in response to Dr. Dargan saying it would be part of our response, or there was an issue. And what we had thought it would be a good idea, perhaps, is to convene a committee and have representatives from every school in the district, as well as parents and students, and perhaps we could come up with a district-wide policy. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
That might be a good idea if, I know there was some talk in the policy subcommittee in regards to spirit wear. So if they do get that together, that might be something they can talk about to see if there's an interest.
Mike?
As I'm reviewing again our policy compared to the various schools' dress codes, I assume these come from their handbooks. It seems to me that the high school excerpt is as strict, if not stricter, than what our policy is. So I do see we've empowered those administrators and teachers to give good guidance I haven't had an opportunity to spend as much time in the halls, so perhaps our theme for Mr. Westport can include a fashion show of sort to show off appropriate dress. I know they pull out the tuxedos then, so I think it's important that they visit it, and I thank Michelle for bringing it up. So.
Chris?
Hi, Christine Staskowitz. I'm the assistant principal at the Westport Elementary School. And I just wanted to say that we actually do not have a dress code for the elementary school. What we do is we adhere to the district policy. And basically for us, we still do not allow belly shirts, and we certainly do not allow spaghetti straps, even though many of our girls are still very young. I just wanted to say that most of our dress code tends to be more based around safety. For instance, we really do refrain from having flip-flops because the children are outside playing, they're playing on play equipment, they're running on pavement, and so we really try to have our dress code be much more around safety. One other issue that I've had to address several times in my role is the T-shirts. The T-shirts with some of these sayings on it that probably are not really very appropriate to be wearing in school, such as "I'm going to sell my brother," or if he says one more thing. And so we
Hey, that was a hand-me-down.
I know. But anyway, so what we have done with that is I will call a parent and just simply, very gently say, it's a great shirt to wear, maybe somewhere else, but not necessarily in school. If the parent doesn't want to come with a different shirt, then we just ask them to turn it inside out, and then they'll just wear it like that for the rest of the day. But I just wanted to clarify that the high school and the middle school do have a dress code, but the elementary school and I believe the Macomber actually go by the district policy. Okay.
What do you do with staff if you have an issue?
With staff,
Obviously, they have to
unfortunately,
dress
sometimes,
appropriately well.
yeah, and with staff, sometimes we have had to address it. It's done with dignity. Usually it's brought to our attention by either another staff member, or a few times it has been brought to our attention by a parent. And so we just very discreetly talk to that staff member and give them the option of being able to leave, to go home, and change into something a little bit more appropriate, and one of the office administrators will cover their class until they return. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay.
Yeah, so I would like to see what Karen Antonelli had said, is that committee put together of all the schools, and maybe people from policy can work with them, and then go back to policy, and then back to the school committee on some input. And make sure we have consistency through the schools.
Yep.
So.
Okay, good. All right, budget subcommittee update. Mike?
We met with the budget subcommittee, which is Melissa Pacheco and myself, Michael Sullivan, met with the business office assistant, and reviewed the current 2014 budget to date. And she did a comparative analysis of spending, expenditures through the last week, and felt that the percentages were on the major line items, that be personnel expense, expenditures, busing, were in line with previous years at this time. We did request some additional details, and should be coming in at the next meeting, or I think it's the next meeting, with a more complete analysis and update on the exact balances on all the accounts. But currently, the major accounts are approximately 20% expended, and that reflects similar flows as past years.
Some of the highlights, or some of the things, the notes that I made, some questions had to be, that we discussed, were the the procedures for POs against a zero balance. That was a question we had. And Dr. Doggin indicated that a PO could not go against a zero balance unless a transfer sheet was attached, so that they would know where the funds would be coming from. And that question came up because of the security and then the truck purchase. Both of those line items were over. I don't know if you recall, but the security that was purchased last year, about $8,000 went in this year. And then the truck purchase also was another $4,800 over what was originally planned for. So that's why that question came up. Another question was in regards to legal expenses. And in talking about that, the legal expenses, we were, my thoughts were that specifically for our school committee, that the chair would be the person who contacts the lawyer, and if a member we would need to go through the chair. And I'm not sure if that's what's currently happening, but that just to ensure that we can keep those expenses as low as possible. The budget calendar was also reviewed, and Dr. Doggin was going to make some recommendations for the budget calendar, and then she was also going to meet with Michael Duat to develop a capital plan for the town. Both of those were discussed. That was pretty much it.
And
You did a nice job summing it all up. So I do have, the proposed budget timeline, and it's a historical timeline from other years. I don't know if we want to change it at this point in time or not. That's probably a discussion that we should put on the calendar for our November meeting. But in the past, it's been during the month of October, we would adjust the salary line items, and I actually now have a cost analysis completed of that. In November, the administration would identify school-based needs through their school improvement plan, their district improvement goals, as well as bringing it to school councils. That would continue into early December, and then we would compile the budget needs by building. In January, the school committee and administration would prioritize needs based on input from the staff as well as the school councils. In February, we would reconcile the current fiscal year's budget and make funding estimates with March of 2014 or there around the budget hearing and final budget proposals sent to the town. I will share with you in just a bit, I did have a meeting with Mr. Healy, and he is really hoping that he could have a number. Well, he really wanted a number yesterday, but he said he'd really like to have something by December 15th. At this point in time, all of the department heads are looking at the town's request of a 0.95% increase, nothing more than just less than 1%. In April, we would have the budget proposals and the explanations, the backup pages available to the public, and then ultimately voting on our budget, with May 2014 being the annual town meeting with the vote for our FY15 budget. At this point in time, Melissa has compiled all of our new hires and the salary that's been offset with the people that they replaced. And we were actually looking at, and this is a question that the budget subcommittee had asked last Thursday evening, if we were looking at the total of teacher and support staff payroll savings, right now we're predicting about $50,045. But then we have to take into account some teacher maternities as well as some FMLAs. And we have another savings predicted at this point in time of about $20,824. So right now, that would be about $70,869. We then looked at the administrators as well as exempt staff. There had been some changes, as well as there had been some overlap, so that we had perhaps an assistant principal serving for a short time as an acting principal. When all of that was said and done, we had a payroll savings of $728. We then had to look at special education. We hired a SPED director, but we did have some overlap with the formal SPED director for about a month with the current SPED director. We also had to assign a mentor to the SPED director, just like we have to have a teacher induction program for any new administrator. We also have to have an administration mentor program. So we had to reflect some salary, a stipend, a small stipend there, as well as then our hire for our SPED supervisor to replace the SPED supervisor who took the SPED director place. So at that point in time, we were in a deficit of $8,090. We then had to take a look at the technology department, and due to some changes overall there, we were in the minus. But when all of this was said and done, there is right now a certainty of a savings in payroll of $26,574. We do have some positions that we still have to fill, such as the resignation that I announced to you. We had a special ed teacher resign in September. He hasn't been replaced yet. We believe that people coming in will either cost neutral or come in perhaps a little bit less. So we don't anticipate this $26,574 being anything less. At this point in time, though, again, as the budget subcommittee noted, we did have our truck purchase that cost us an additional $4,854, as well as the labor security system. The labor security system was paid for out of last year's funds, but we knew apparently that there would be this additional cost, that we would have this bill that we would have to pay. So it's nothing new, it's nothing additional that was found as the implementation went in. But when we add those two items together, that's in the deficit of $12,925. So if we were to deduct that from the personnel, from the salaries, we would be left with a projected savings right now of $13,649.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Just on that security system, that includes the door systems as well?
Correct.
So that's the total?
That's the total package, yes.
So cameras and all the
IDs,
door
yes.
security latches and card systems that we've implemented?
Yes.
Because I know that was the unknown when we went into the project, that might be a variable. So, great. Thank you.
Caroline? No?
Oh, I'm sorry, the FMLA, was that a savings or a cost?
If we were to look at it on an individual basis, there's some savings as well as there's some cost. But overall totality of teacher maternity and FMLA, there's a savings of $20,824.
Okay. All right, on to the action agenda. So I don't know, I guess maybe you've already gotten into the approval of the superintendent's entry plan.
Thank you. I know last week there were some concerns or some questions raised on what kind of a vision might I have. So I spent some time last week reflecting, as well as I was kept quite busy last week. So I'd like to just walk you through a little bit of what I did last week and where I believe at this point in time some of the issues or areas that we need to address. So again, where are we today? Well, we have our vision of we're going to strive to be a model district. We're going to provide opportunities for all students to think creatively, critically, and we're going to communicate effectively in order to achieve their highest potential. We want our graduates to possess the skills required to become responsible and contributing citizens in a rapidly changing world. So that's our long-range vision. So how are we going to get there? Well, we need to inspire, prepare, and challenge our youth through rigorous, differentiated, and relevant curriculum that extends beyond the classroom to include experiences in the community that nurtures the academic, artistic, physical, social potential of every student. So, since I was acknowledged last week as the acting superintendent, I met with the administrative team, who we have an excellent, a wonderful administrative team to work with. And I feel blessed and fortunate to have them working alongside me. I met with Mr. Healy and Mr. Lombard, and they reviewed what the town recommendation was for moving forward with the budget preparation and what all department heads had been charged with. I also attended last Thursday, late afternoon, the budget subcommittee meeting, and then I went up to Town Hall, and I know they're still toying a little bit with what the name is going to be called, so I just put Town Liaison Group, but that's really trying to continue what was started last spring with members of FinCom, members of Selectmen and School Committee, really preparing for the town-wide budget. What's it going to look like when we get to town meeting? And so giving one another an opportunity to really understand and look at one another's budgets and budget needs. I also spent a bit of time reviewing the budget. I met with Chris Gonzalez from the Highway Department to start talking about any snow or any other weather emergencies. I met with some key personnel in the district, such as food service and transportation, custodial, and special education. I have not yet met with maintenance because unfortunately he's been out of the district, but he is someone that I also need to speak with very, very soon. I also had to address some personnel matters. We had a superintendent's coffee over at the middle school, and I was fortunate to attend the business-to-business meeting last week, all the while continuing to oversee the curriculum office. So moving forward, what do we need to do? Well, as we just started to talk, we need to prepare the FY15 budget. We do have some administrators who are in interim positions, so we do need to look towards finding permanent principal and assistant principalships, so we need to look to making some hires. We need to continue to negotiate with AFSCME. We need to begin negotiating with Westfed. We need to negotiate with our nurses. We need to think about the transportation contract, which will expire this year. And we also have a strategic plan and a district improvement plan that have been planned until the end of this school year, but we need to revisit that, and we need to determine, are we right on course, or do we need to revise, or do we need to develop a new strategic and district improvement plan? We also need to identify district-determined measures for every teacher by June, and we need to address the Westport Middle School PCB situation. And at this point in time, I haven't heard from the MSBA, so I know, but I'm just putting it out here on these are the things that this year we know we need to address. What's the oversight? Who's overseeing what? Well, at this point in time, in the area of curriculum, the principals and assistant principals have done a phenomenal job. Yesterday afternoon, we had an early release, and they continued to work with their staff on district-determined measures. I feel that at this point, the networking that I needed to do with our sales reps, with people on the outside, professional development trainers, is put in place. And so our principals and assistant principals are really now acting on the plan that was put together. So as an example, we use AimsWeb in our district for kindergarten through grade 4, and that's where we maintain a lot of our data. We have some curriculum-based measures embedded in that program. I was able to purchase some professional development, and now Chris Staskowitz is working with the vendor on determining the date that that consultant will come in and work with the staff. In the area of technology, we have Bob Noguera, who has really taken that department under his wing, and I've been working closely with him in that area too as well. In the area of human resources, as I said, Melissa Souza oversees the executive assistant in human resources. We have a new hire that is coming in, and Melissa will continue to oversee that, and Michelle Fredericks will do the training for the new HR. And then the area of budget, again, we're fortunate to have Melissa Souza as the executive assistant to the business manager. And she's a wealth of knowledge and resource, and she's been helping me oversee the budget at this point in time. Recommendations and things to consider. I'm recommending that we conduct an audit of the financial accounts. Anytime there is a change of a superintendent coming in and out, it is recommended that an audit be conducted. We also know from the MASBO report, they recommend that we include an annual audit of the revolving accounts. They recommend that we track the usage of facilities and fields, and we consider other recommendations that are also in that MASBO report. We know we need to revise the organizational chart. I do have copies of a printout, as does Karen, from our old chart, so we need to revisit that. And we also need to consider a school business official as recommended by MASBO. So our theory of action is if we provide a safe learning environment, develop, coordinate, and implement a rigorous curriculum through quality instruction, and we create an environment where educational innovation and best practices are valued, practiced, and evaluated, then our students will be prepared for college or career readiness, and together we will build educational success.
Thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
And the audit, is that something, or you need a motion from the school committee for that? Is that something you do?
I put it under the action agenda just in case you wanted to take any votes.
Go ahead, Caroline.
We just got an audit report from the town that our books were audited and fine, and then didn't we just get a MASBO audit? So now we're gonna pay for another audit? I'm confused.
What's the difference, Ann?
At this point in time, you know, those audits were completed in June. MASBO came in and they didn't actually look at the numbers. They were really auditing and looking at our procedure and our policies. And so I just think, again, it's a recommendation that the Mass Association of School Superintendents makes anytime a new superintendent comes in. And that's why I put it under action agenda. These are only suggestions and recommendations. They aren't things that the school committee have to take up. But at this point in time, you know, it's someone who would come in and look over our books and just see exactly where we need to be.
Do they come in and look at actual expenditures? Is that what
Correct.
so they're picking a few here and there and verifying expenditures and all of that? And then what is the typical cost of something like that?
About $5,000 or so.
Okay, thank you.
And the town, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, as the MASBO was an audit of process, not a financial audit, and the town audit included a compliance audit piece that has to do with our end-of-year figures as reported. We certainly, it would make sense to contact the town CPA auditor and ask them if that completes a full financial audit of the schools. And then we could perhaps, I think it would be less if in fact that was the case, but we have not had a complete financial audit in the 5 years that I've been here.
Well, I guess we could look into that. I had another question, I forgot now. Go ahead.
I have a concern about the potential conflict of interest with regards to you providing oversight in the technology department. How are you going to address that?
Actually, the data coordinator is assigned right now, Melissa Souza. That position is actually assigned to the business manager
We don't have a business manager. That means you're it.
at this point in time. I
So who's
understand that.
supervising that person? And she's not a data coordinator. She's the executive assistant for data is what her position is. She's not a data coordinator. At least that's not the title that she has. So I'm just very concerned, paperwork that needs to be filed in order to even have had that happen hasn't been filed to my knowledge.
Nope, but I have it here completed to share with you later on. It's a disclosure by non-elected municipal employee of financial interest and determination by appointing authority as required. So I have the paperwork completed and
Is
we'll
that on the
share it.
agenda for tonight? Is that on the action agenda for tonight?
No.
Does it need a motion
Yeah, we have to vote on it.
on
I thought we
We
were-
have
the
to-
paperwork?
We have to vote on that paperwork?
Yeah?
No, that paperwork has to be
Just to submit
submitted,
it.
period.
No. You filed one and you filed one with the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen had to take a vote
But
approving it.
we don't take a vote.
Yeah,
No,
we
That
do.
goes to the town clerk.
No. You have to go in front of the appointing authority. We are the you want me to read what it says?
That's
We're the
correct.
appointing authority. She needs to present to us, and then we need to decide whether we're gonna approve it or not. It doesn't just get approved.
But this
Can I-
employee was already here, so it must have already gotten approved at some point then. No?
She's the superintendent. That employee was here. She wasn't supervising her because Dr. Colley was. She is now in a position where she has direct supervision, even though there's another person underneath it, it still eventually flows to her. She needs to file the disclosure. This person is on the payroll. She can't even sign the warrants for this person. I don't know who's gonna sign the warrants. But that form has to be presented to the school committee,
Through
and
the-
we have to take a vote on it. Read the state ethics requirements on the disclosure form.
Through the chair, Tony?
Yeah.
I read them.
No,
So,
hold on.
if this was known, let's see, 2 weeks ago, why wasn't this asked to be put on the agenda?
Because it's the employee's person, it's the
But you-
employee who is seeking the waiver that has to do the legwork, not the person who was sitting here saying we shouldn't even be doing any
But
of this.
if you know
and we should have a
something's available, I would
different
think that you would make an
superintendent.
effort to put it on the agenda.
Because that's not my responsibility.
Oh, okay.
That is not my
Okay,
responsibility.
okay. All right, so.
That is the person who's seeking the waiver's responsibility. When Michelle had to do it, she asked them to put it on the agenda. It got put on the agenda. The Board of Selectmen didn't put it on the agenda themselves. They had to be asked by them. That's how it gets on.
Go ahead.
We got huge issues here, people.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead. Michael?
I, in the past 24 hours, saw the contract, and I don't want to speak specifically to personnel issues, because it's not on the agenda, it's not appropriate. But perhaps a recent information that was shared for informational purposes with the school committee may have triggered the research, and while it may be appropriate to be on the future agenda, I would look forward to taking it up when it's on the agenda.
Tony. And this is,
Hold on. And to be fair, an action of the school committee caused the issue.
this has been my problem with this whole thing. There was no plan. All of this needed to be done in advance. You can't have somebody supervising a member of their family.
There
It is
was-
against the
Dr.
code of
Dargan-
ethics.
Dr. Dargan filled out the paper, and you've got the,
I have, and
Okay.
Can I read the requirement here?
No.
It says it?
however, I
Yeah.
haven't signed a contract yet here. We haven't negotiated
True.
anything, so at this
and
point in
I
time-
thought we were gonna take care of that in, well, we've got the negotiations in executive, obviously, so. And that's not what we're discussing right now, it is not. Sure, quick.
Sorry.
Nope.
Sorry.
Watch
Sally
your-
Huntington. I just want to
Really?
give a little piece of advice, because I was on school committee for so long. This should probably be discussed in executive,
Thank you,
okay?
thank you. Okay. So I think that's where that's, I think one would lead to the other. All right, Ann, do you want we want a motion to accept Ann's plan or Dr. Dargan's plan? We need a motion?
accept that?
You don't need a motion? Okay. All right, anything else on the,
Based on it being on the action agenda, I do see a item consideration of the school business official It was in the MASBO report,
That's what's-
and I would strongly urge fellow members that we consider a part-time school business official position immediately.
Okay.
So perhaps a motion to get the discussion on it, or
Well, let's discuss it. Melissa?
So I just wanted to say one thing in regards, because we're talking about the approval of the superintendent entry plan. And I've heard that many times in regards to the plan, that we needed to have a plan. So I just wanted to say that on October 9th, we went into executive session. We could not develop a plan for a meeting that we could not discuss, because you can't discuss a meeting unless you're in a meeting. So you can't discuss executive session prior to walking into executive session. So you can't have a plan for a meeting that's going to occur. In addition to that, after we left executive session and whatever happened on that time happened, we again can't talk about a plan until we meet again in open session, which was our last meeting. And at that time is when we decided that the acting superintendent would be Dr. Dargan, and now she's presented the plan. So everybody wanted to see a plan, but you have to be in open session or meeting as a group, not in secret session, as some people may think happens, which it never did occur. That's why a plan was never developed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's move.
And again, as much as I brought up the one item that I feel is important, I do want to make note that I'm impressed with the plan. Certainly, it's indicative of well thought out planning and picking up the momentum that we have going here at the Westport schools and continuing it. So, thank you.
I just want to, Michael, add to your previous thought on a school business official. While I agree with you that we have to give that serious thought moving forward, I'm not prepared to decide on that right now, because, I mean, we don't really have any information on that.
It's not on the agenda either.
But I agree that we have to make a decision on that. I'd like to see that.
And I mean, it is part of Dr. Dargan's
It's part of
plan
the
to,
plan.
that we do need to consider. I think Dr. Dargan is certainly considering that, so, I mean, we could.
And being part of the 11 recommendations that the MASPO report had, and where that's in this plan.
It's something clearly we need to do, absolutely. Okay,
Right.
let's move on. There's a game on tonight or something. Approval of the West Field Trip, SPED Department, Escobar Farms in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
My kids went there this past week and they loved it, so the kids have a good time.
And the reason we have to approve that is because it's out of state. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of the Westport Middle School field trip, SPED Department, Providence Children's Museum.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of Westport Middle School field trip, SPED Department, Roger Williams Zoo on May
So
9th.
moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of the West field trip, grade 4 to the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Providence, April 10th.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I can't move to the next one.
Approval of a $969 grant from the Westport Education Foundation for the Westport Middle School 6th grade math club.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? So anyway, another great gift from the Westport Education Foundation, and we certainly appreciate it. All in favor?
Did you say something?
Oh, sorry.
No, I said we hadn't voted yet. I abstain.
Did we have a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and we got G, approval of job description for school committee recording secretary.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yes. What, can we talk about this?
Yeah, yeah.
Where is this coming from? What do we, why, when, where, and how?
Well, let me just, as we all know, Ms. Augusto, the superintendent's executive secretary, and also the school committee's secretary, is also the, recording clerk as part of that job. Years ago when Karen took that on as a stipend to her contract, basically the school committee used to have 13 meetings a year. I think last year we had 28.
See what happens when you take control?
No, last year. We had 28, and it's, as anybody could imagine, it's a tremendous task. It eats a tremendous amount of time. So basically, Ms. Augusto certainly wants to stay on as the secretary and will do all the day-to-day work that's asked of her by the committee, but would no longer like to be the recording clerk as far as the school committee meetings. As far as executive meetings and some of these budget subcommittee meetings, I would suggest that we just take our own minutes. We assign a secretary and just take our own minutes on those. But that's where this is. I guess they did some searching and came up with put some different job descriptions together to come up with this one. So, go ahead, Melissa.
I noticed that the Personnel Board is also hiring for a recording clerk. I wonder if there's any ways of maybe utilizing their pool or seeing if there could be, and I don't know if there's a conflict, I don't know when they meet, but if they're hiring a confidential.
Who is?
I think it was the Personnel Board. It's out on the board over here. I just happened to notice. Is it the planning? It begins with a P, I know. But they're also looking for a recording. So just as a side note, I don't know if there's any way to utilize, if they have a number of applicants, maybe we could somehow just tap into that. Just a thought.
Karen, did I touch on everything? Would you like to add it?
Sorry, and very sad to see you go. And you've done an exceptional job, and I'm sorry that we've taxed you with weekly meetings for a long time.
All right.
I
So,
would second that.
so we have a
what Karen
motion.
said.
Mike made the motion?
Discussion?
Was there a
Yeah,
second on the
yeah,
motion?
I don't know. Was there? Yeah, so we're in discussion. Good.
Right. I just, in looking at the details, we have to set a rate of pay, and is some of these tasks going to be continued to, the interaction between the recording secretary and Karen, I think, is key to it working well.
If I may say something.
Yes.
I will continue to do everything else except record the meetings. I will still do the postings, I will still do the packets, whatever else is going on during the day, I will handle and take care of. It will just be someone to record the minutes and to type them up.
Great. And that's, I guess what I'm pointing to is not wanting to lose the controls and coordination, I shouldn't say controls, the coordination that you do so well. And we're in a situation where we can't simply record it and have it transcribed because we have to have an official recording clerk here. Let's not exhaust the new person till late hours, but
And maybe we could always coax her into coming back when we.
great. Thank you.
Karen, we know everyone on this committee knows it's how much time you put in and the sacrifice and getting home at 11 o'clock at night and, I might hint to you to come in a couple of minutes late the next morning and I know you're always here first thing and, we appreciate it and everybody appreciates it. So with that, a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We didn't have a job description for that?
No, I guess not. Okay. All right, approval of distribution of reflective bags and glow sticks at the Westport Middle School for Halloween on October 30th by the Westport Police Department.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I think it's very nice.
Yes. So they're gonna hand out glow sticks to all
It
the
sounds
kids?
like it.
Yeah?
So you can see the kids in the
Nice,
streets.
oh, that's very nice.
My son has a black costume, all black, that my husband picked out for him.
What's wrong with that?
Let's just say I wasn't very happy.
Well, you'll have the glow sticks then.
Thank God.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we certainly thank the police department for that. Approval of payment of the mask/mask conference invoice. Michael, you wanna? So this is the, you wanna? So this is the mask conference that a few months back we decided that two of us would go. I think Melissa and I were going, and that we're all signed up, and that was all done. But I guess Michael's decided to join us, so he filled out all the proper paperwork, and so this is the approval of that, so.
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
I'm gonna second it for discussion, but
Okay.
I have to put it out there that this is, the procedure, the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we bring it to the school committee, we get approval, and then we go and we pay for it, or then Karen processes the paperwork, and then it gets paid. This is every year the reverse, where it's just,
He registers
Right.
and then wants reimbursement. It's
I mean,
crazy.
timing wise, we have time to approve it.
There was a professional development form filled out and submitted to the superintendent. That is in accordance with what I understood the procedures to be. And
Do we have?
we have not been able
We
to
do have
find
a
the
procedure
professional
for that.
development form.
We did fill out.
So whatever, I'll be abstaining, but I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you,
From what I-
Michael.
I
From what I
reviewed
understand.
the
Ms.
schedule and I
Sullivan,
saw some items that I thought would be of
I
interest.
do remember Dr. Colley showing that to me.
I just want to ask that in the future, again,
This is the
we,
fourth year in a
we
row.
just, but we have time to approve it. So last year, we didn't have time to approve it. It was literally like up against the wire and there were no more meetings. We just need to clarify that, do we, by next year, do we go out and purchase our own, or do we have it approved by the school committee before it gets paid for, in the future, so that school committee members don't get stuck with the bill as well?
Tony,
Yeah, go ahead.
how many, can I, through the chair,
Mhm.
how many years in a row have you gone to this conference?
Are you asking me or Mike?
No, I'm asking Mike,
Um,
through the chair.
2 or 3, I alternate typically, but as I said, I saw some items on this year's sessions that are of particular interest, and I believe would add value.
Tony? I have the follow-up to that.
Follow up.
Okay. My concern is that we're gonna be spending money we don't have. 2 of you are already going. Why do we need a third person to go? We don't need 3 people there. You guys can bring back whatever's there. He went last year, he went the year before, and if I'm not mistaken, he went the year before. This would be the 4th year in a row that he's gone. I don't see the necessity of the same member continuing to go year after year when the 2 of you have never been. So why should we have to pay for 3 people? 2 should be sufficient. $430. It's not like it's 10 cents.
So this invoice is being brought here for approval, correct? Has this been paid already? So he's bringing it to us for approval prior to going on the conference, which is exactly, I remember sitting from the audience, this happening. This is what what I understood we needed to do. So I don't know what the big deal is, but, and then the second thing is, I think as a school committee, we would all benefit from getting professional development and learning best practices out there. So I would encourage all of us to go. We don't get paid a hefty salary. It is an honor to be sitting here, but at the same time, I think it's important for us to get educated so that we can do and be the best school committee that we can for our students.
I'm not suggesting that it's not worthy of anybody going. I don't care how many times you've gone. If there's something, that's fine. All I'm saying is that the way I understand it, and I'm asking for clarification for the future, I want this to be cleared up. In the past, it wasn't there was no paperwork filled out. It was literally just the invoice shows up. When I have done things, Karen has actually signed me up, and it's gone, because there's a number that the school has for certain things that I don't have as a registrant.
We didn't have a purchase order for this.
Right, which is the problem.
So you don't have a purchase order right now?
No, we didn't have a purchase order for this.
Right, so it hasn't been in the system.
Because the school committee didn't approve it, is the way I understand it happens. The school committee approves it, the purchase order is created, and then she can put it through. So that's the way I understand the procedure. All I am asking is that we clarify, for the record, period, end of story, that is how we do it, or that there's another avenue, because if that's how it's done, and we have time to approve this, so that's fine, but in the future, we need to decide, does it come to the school committee first, then the purchase order is created, because that's the way I understand it. I know the principals or whatever, it's the same way. If a teacher wants something, that somebody's got to create the purchase order. So we need to approve the purchase order so that it can then be submitted, and that's the way I just want clarification moving forward. That's all.
And when we
It's a policy.
when we signed up back however many months ago, are we just reserving the spots, or are we actually registering and paying?
It's been paid.
That was a discount.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because if you register early, it's
Correct.
So now it's costing us.
now.
was
So
cheaper.
now, could we just say, so you can't? So it's not something where we can reserve, say, 5 seats and then decide. No, so it's
No,
you're
you
basically
can't.
prepaying.
Yes.
Okay.
But that was cheaper, because it was done
Right.
like in June or
It's costing
something.
us more now.
Right.
Tony, there's a policy that addresses this. And when I was here last year, we talked about the policy that wasn't followed. And we read the minutes from the previous year when the same thing happened, and it happened the previous year when Jim Menard was chair. This is something that happens every single year, and every year it costs us more, because when you register early, it's cheaper. I don't understand why, when we voted on the 2 of you, he didn't say, I want to go too.
I'm not
Actually,
going to speak for Michael, but I know for me, that was very far out in advance, and I couldn't think from June till November personally. So as it gets closer, I can see it's easier to work your schedule. But I'll just say again, I just want this clarified for the record, period, end of story, so that we know this is how we do it. It comes to us first, we vote on it, and then the purchase order is created, and then it can be put through the system, or we do whatever we do, and then we do it online by ourselves, and then the school committee votes on it. I want to have this put to bed. Can we vote? No?
Again, if I could, the form was filled out. I did express interest of attending, but we weren't sure. I didn't think we were sure, at least the meeting I was at. I don't know if it came up at the other meeting I wasn't in. So I was not aware if 2 people had signed up or not. If it's up to the school committee, I'll be, I'll cancel it and be responsible for any charges, or if you choose not to educate me further with this. But I did fill out the form, the professional development, and it's been a busy month. I don't know where that is at this time. I didn't keep a copy.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay. All right, so routine matters. Approval of minutes of Wednesday, October 2nd, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Approval of minutes of Wednesday, October 9th, 2013.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 School committee business. What do we got? Do we have anything?
A couple of agendas from Diamond, and then there's.
Which is the meeting
Did they already
again for
happen?
today, yeah, for tonight.
One's Monday, I think.
Ooh, got it in advance.
And then I believe there's an invitation from,
Yeah, I saw that
Middle
one.
Council, for the Mass Council.
So, yeah, we have an invitation from Murphy, Hess, Toomey, and Lehane, which is the school's attorney law firm, in conjunction with the Mass Conference. We're hoping the superintendent committee members can join us for a social occasion. We have arrangements for a reception, a buffet at Alberto's Restaurant, Hyannis, on Thursday, November 7th, and directions. RSVP, blah, blah, blah. And then Diamond's school committee meeting, which is Monday, October 28th. We have an agenda. Yeah, it's both Monday, October 28th at 4 p.m. Diamond's conference room. All right. Correspondence. No. New business requests.
Maybe, since it was brought up,
Business,
yeah,
the school business
school
official.
business official, we need to discuss what we're gonna do.
So, and you could look into, part-time or,
Job description.
yeah, just
Job descriptions,
and
pay,
how would we, where would the funds come from that? So, as everyone knows, we obviously got the report from the engineering firm on the middle school, but obviously we're still waiting. And I did make a call to MASBO, Massachusetts Association of School Buildings, MSBA,
SBA.
and
All those acronyms,
and left a
Tony?
message with somebody.
Tony,
Yes.
I do want to put, we're going to have to do a search for a superintendent, so we should start looking at what the process of that's going to be.
Well, we got, you guys all got that email, right?
Mhm.
From,
And boy, there's
Okay.
a lot of steps in that process.
okay, anything else?
Speaking of MSBA, I was also inquisitive and made a call, spoke to Brian McLaughlin. There's at max 2 more meetings on this round, and then they'll be putting this round to bed, basically. So I called and identified myself as a school committee member. He was well aware of our SOIs without having them in front of him, and indicated there's 2 more meetings this round. Did not say whether or not we would be included in the discussion, but I was encouraged that the person who I was connected, who actually called me back, was well aware of what we had submitted.
how come you couldn't get that info?
I don't know, that's probably why I left the message.
What happens after the 2 rounds?
We would
Wait for the
resubmit
next
SOIs at the, once, my impression from the conversation was the round closes after a year. So they'll, when it's reopened again, we would resubmit it if we're not chosen to
Okay.
go further.
So
If-
after the next 2 meetings, they'll have a decision as to who they will move forward with and who they will not.
Well, that's right, who they select to be put into the pipeline, and then there's a tremendous amount of work would have to go forward. So they know we're anxious to hear.
Okay.
They're also, I don't know if he is assigned to our district, but he was well aware of the fact that we had just completed under the green repairs, and he knows we're anxiously awaiting more details from the state. But I'm just reporting this as maybe we should put it on new business.
I mean, if we hear from by then, sure, it'll certainly be on. And they did say the end of October.
Historically, that's when they've let the projects be known.
Okay.
I actually got excited when we got that other email, and I was like, oh,
I know.
Yeah, I know. I thought that's what
I
it was.
did
Huh?
too. I thought it was
I
a
did too.
notification.
That's what reminded me.
there should be a disclaimer in the thing.
Yeah.
This is the old stuff.
Okay, comments and statements from the public? Seeing none. All right, adjourn to executive session for contract negotiations with non-union personnel not to return into open session.
So moved. I'm Melissa Pacheco.
I, Michael Sullivan.
Aye, Tony Viveras.
I'm Michelle Keeler.
Hi, Carolina.